The Galactic Empire had always been known as the most powerful force in the galaxy. For centuries, their fleets had ruled star systems with iron-fisted authority, crushing planets and civilizations that dared to resist them. Stories of their immense warships, bristling with weapons, and their ruthless commanders were known far and wide. When the Empire set its sights on the remote human colony at the edge of explored space, everyone expected the humans to submit without a fight. After all, no one had ever stood up to the Empire and lived to tell the tale. The humans, however, were different. On the surface, their colony seemed small and fragile, almost insignificant compared to the massive fleets of the Empire. Their ships were smaller, less armored, and their population limited. From the perspective of the Empire, they were just another target easy to intimidate, easy to destroy if necessary. Imperial commanders were confident, convinced that the humans would tremble before the might of their ships and surrender immediately. As the Empire's fleet approached, the humans could see the massive shapes of the warships appearing on the sensors of their smaller vessels. Each ship was larger than entire cities, armed with weapons capable of obliterating planets. The fleet moved with precision and discipline, their engines glowing as they formed a vast, intimidating formation in the space near the human colony. Messages were sent immediately, first as warnings and then as ultimatums. The Empire demanded obedience. They wanted the humans to accept their authority, to pledge loyalty, and to avoid destruction by showing complete submission. The humans received the messages, but instead of fear, they responded with laughter. The transmission was full of chuckles, jokes, and humor that the Empire could barely understand. For the Imperial commanders, this was shocking. They were used to fear, to panic, to desperate pleas for mercy but not laughter. They had expected trembling voices, apologies, promises to surrender, but not humans calmly mocking them over communications. Inside the human command center, Captain Alara Vance stood tall, observing the incoming fleet. She was a leader known for her calm and clever mind. Unlike many others who might have panicked, she treated the arrival of the Empire not as a threat but as a challenge, something to be met with strategy rather than fear. She smiled as she watched her crew, who were busy preparing their smaller, nimble ships. Their vessels were fast, adaptable, and much smaller than the Empire's massive warships. But their advantage lay in their ingenuity and speed. Elara knew that size was not always the deciding factor. The humans quickly assessed the situation. They had fewer ships, fewer weapons, and less armor, but they had something else: creativity and unpredictability. The Empire relied on intimidation, expecting every enemy to react with fear and obey their commands. Humans, however, did not follow predictable patterns. They laughed at the threats, not because they were foolish, but because they understood the Empire did not know them. Their humor was a weapon, a way to unsettle their opponents psychologically. The Empire expected fear, and instead, it received audacity. As the Imperial fleet moved closer, the humans began to prepare their response. They did not rush into battle recklessly. Instead, they studied the positions of the enemy ships, their movements, and their formation. Each human vessel was small and fast, able to weave between asteroid fields and use the terrain of space itself as cover. The humans' approach was careful but daring. They planned maneuvers that the Empire would never expect, using tactics that relied on intelligence rather than brute force. The Empire broadcasted messages of warning again, this time more urgent. They projected power through their communications, describing in detail the weapons they could deploy, the destruction they could bring to the colony, and the hopelessness of resisting them. They expected these threats to shake the humans, to bring panic to their command centers and force a surrender. But every message, no matter how threatening, was met with more laughter. The humans made jokes, sent playful taunts, and even mimicked the Empire's own style of communication. Turning their words into humor, Captain Alara watched the transmissions carefully. She knew the importance of showing confidence. Her crew could feel it too. Morale was high, not because they were naive, but because they understood the Empire's weakness. The humans were clever, unpredictable, and able to improvise. Their laughter was a signal of their resilience and unity. They were sending a message. Fear was not part of their vocabulary. This psychological defiance, even before any battle began, was already unsettling the Empire's commanders. The human colony, small though it was buzzing with activity. Engineers checked their ships, ensuring engines and weapons were ready. Pilots practiced maneuvers in simulators, preparing for the unexpected. Communications officers monitored the Empire's signals, ready to respond in kind. Every member of the colony contributed, knowing that they were facing one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Their unity and calm confidence contrasted sharply with the Empire's expectation of submission. As the Imperial fleet loomed larger, the humans' laughter continued, echoing through space communications like a strange, unexpected challenge. The Empire had expected panic, but they were met with mockery, audacity, and cleverness. The humans' response was not reckless. It was calculated. They knew they were outmatched in sheer firepower, but they also knew that confidence and ingenuity could change the rules of the game. By the time the Empire reached striking distance, they realized something surprising. The humans were not afraid. Their small ships, nimble and fast, appeared on sensors in unusual formations. It was almost as if there were more of them than reality allowed. The Empire's commanders felt confusion and unease for the first time in their careers. They had faced countless enemies, but humans were unlike anything they had ever encountered. This unexpected courage, this defiance in the face of overwhelming odds, set the stage for a confrontation that would challenge everything the Empire thought it knew about intimidation and power. The humans were not frightened by the Imperial fleet, but they understood the danger they faced. Their colony was small, their ships fewer and weaker compared to the massive warships of the Empire. Yet, instead of panicking, they began to prepare a plan based on their strength, speed, agility, cleverness, and unpredictability. Captain Alara Vance, the leader of the human fleet, knew that brute force would not win this confrontation. They had to rely on intelligence, tactics, and the willingness to do the unexpected. Every human ship was small, fast, and nimble, designed to maneuver quickly through space and avoid direct confrontation with the Empire's heavily armored vessels. The humans spread their ships out in strange, unusual formations, ones that the Empire's commanders found hard to interpret. On sensors, it appeared as though there were more ships than there actually were. They used reflective decoys and holographic projections, making the fleet seem larger and more organized than it truly was. Every move was calculated to confuse and intimidate the Empire in a way the humans called controlled chaos. The engineers and pilots of the human fleet worked tirelessly. While the Empire relied on overwhelming firepower, the humans relied on adaptability. Ships were modified to move faster, to hide in asteroid fields, and to appear from unexpected angles. Pilots were trained not to follow predictable patterns, but to respond to threats with creative maneuvers that kept them safe while striking fear into the enemy's perception. Even though their weapons were smaller and fewer, they were accurate and used strategically. Captain Alara held daily briefings with her officers. She emphasized the importance of creativity in battle. Every officer, from navigators to communications experts, had a role in the plan. They analyzed the Empire's previous campaigns, learning how the fleet typically approached new colonies. Using that knowledge, the humans predicted likely attack patterns and prepared countermeasures. But more importantly, they left room for improvisation. They knew that if the Empire expected a standard defense, their unconventional tactics would work even better. The Empire, in contrast, was becoming frustrated. They had assumed fear and submission, but the humans' behavior was something they could not compute. Messages continued to arrive, full of jokes, confident taunts, and even humorous imitations of the Empire's own broadcast style. The Imperial commanders had never faced an enemy that responded to threats with laughter. This unsettled them more than any warning or threat could. They expected fear, but humans seemed to thrive on challenge. The humans also used deception to their advantage. Small groups of ships would appear in multiple locations, as if the colony had more vessels than it actually did. Holographic projections created illusions of larger fleets, tricking the Empire's senses. This forced the Empire to divide its forces, slowing their approach and creating opportunities for the humans to act. Every move was designed to give the humans an edge without putting them in direct danger. Even their communications were part of the strategy. While the Empire used transmissions to intimidate, the humans turned every message into a psychological tool. They laughed at threats, misled the enemy about their numbers and positions, and projected confidence. This wasn't recklessness, it was psychological warfare. The humans understood that intimidation worked because it caused fear. By refusing to be intimidated, they turned the Empire's greatest weapon against them. The humans' understanding of space itself gave them another advantage. Asteroid fields, comets, and gas clouds near their colony were used as natural shields. Their ships could slip in and out of cover, making it difficult for the Empire to lock onto targets. They used the terrain of space in ways that the Empire had not anticipated. By hiding in plain sight and striking unpredictably, they made it clear that raw size and power did not guarantee victory. Within the colony, civilians played their own roles. Engineers repaired ships, technicians monitored sensors, and communications officers relayed the captain's commands. Morale was high, not because the humans underestimated the danger, but because they believed in each other and in their collective ingenuity. The confidence of the humans was infectious. Even those on the ground felt that they were part of something extraordinary. As the Imperial fleet drew closer, the human strategy began to show its effects. The Empire's commanders tried to organize their attack, but every move was met with uncertainty. Ships appeared where they should not be. Communications carried mocking, confident messages. The humans were not passive. They were active, unpredictable, and ready for anything. Even the smallest human vessel, maneuvering between asteroids or darting through gas clouds, was a challenge for the Empire's enormous, less agile ships. Captain Alara herself was always on the bridge, monitoring sensors and giving instructions with calm authority. She encouraged her officers to think creatively, to make decisions quickly, and to trust their instincts. Every member of the fleet was aware that their unconventional strategies were their greatest asset. By refusing to follow predictable patterns, by using humor, cleverness, and ingenuity, they were redefining the battlefield. The humans' approach worked because it forced the Empire to rethink everything. Their expectation of fear and submission was shattered. Instead of facing a colony begging for mercy, the Empire faced a force that was clever, adaptable, and completely fearless. The humans were proving that power was not only measured in size or weapons but in strategy, courage, and the ability to think differently. As the Imperial fleet positioned itself, preparing for what it believed would be an easy conquest, the humans remained ready. Their ships were scattered, their formations unusual, and their tactics unconventional. But every movement was deliberate. They had taken what could have been a moment of panic and turned it into an opportunity to challenge the Empire in ways that brute strength could not overcome. Their confidence and creativity were already a victory of sorts, showing that even the mightiest power could be questioned, mocked, and ultimately outsmarted by ingenuity and courage. The Imperial commanders were growing increasingly frustrated. They had expected fear, trembling, and obedience from the human colony, but instead, they were met with laughter, mockery, and clever defiance. Every warning broadcast, every threat of destruction, seemed only to amuse the humans. This was unlike anything the Empire had ever experienced. They were used to enemies who cowered under the weight of their fleet, who submitted or tried to flee, but the humans did not react in any way the Empire could predict. Inside the human command center, Captain Alara Vance remained calm. She understood the power of psychological warfare. The Empire relied not only on their ships and weapons but also on their ability to intimidate. They had crushed countless civilizations before humans. Their strategy was simple: instill fear, force surrender, and maintain control. Alara knew that if she could prevent fear from taking hold in her people, the Empire's intimidation would fail. Humor became a weapon, and the humans wielded it skillfully. The crew of the human fleet responded to every Imperial threat with wit. When the Empire warned of immediate bombardment, communications officers transmitted messages filled with jokes, playful insults, and absurd challenges. Sometimes they mimicked the Empire's tone, exaggerating it to make the commands sound ridiculous. Other times, they made light of the weapons the Empire boasted about, pointing out in humorous ways that humans had survived worse dangers in their history. Each message was carefully crafted to frustrate the Imperial commanders while keeping human morale high. The Empire attempted to escalate their tactics. They conducted low-orbit flybys, sending massive warships close to the colony's atmosphere. They fired warning shots into nearby asteroid fields, demonstrating their firepower. Imperial commanders expected these maneuvers to terrify the humans into submission. Instead, the humans reacted strategically and with amusement. Pilots maneuvered their small ships between asteroids, avoiding the Empire's fire while signaling mock surrender or cheeky gestures over communications. The Empire could not comprehend this level of audacity that the humans also used intelligence and prediction to undermine the Empire's confidence. By carefully observing the enemy fleet, they noticed patterns in the Empire's movements. Though the fleet was enormous, the commanders relied on predictable strategies that had worked against other civilizations. Humans studied these patterns, predicting likely attack sequences and preparing responses in advance. When the Empire attempted to catch them off guard, humans were already ready. They responded to threats with exact precision, often in ways that seemed impossible given the size difference between the forces. As the psychological game continued, the Empire's fleet began to falter. The more the humans laughed, the more the Imperial commanders doubted themselves. They expected fear to be contagious, but instead, it was human confidence and humor that spread. Smaller, quicker ships darted around the massive Imperial vessels, their movements so unexpected that the fleet's sensors often reported false readings. That humans' unconventional tactics created confusion, making it difficult for the Empire to coordinate its attack. Even the human civilians contributed to the psychological warfare. On the colony's surface, people broadcasted signals that mimicked larger fleets, created false alarms, and sent humorous counter-messages to Imperial communications. Engineers worked on making decoys and small drones that looked like full-sized ships on the Empire's sensors. Every human action, from pilot maneuvers to civilian participation, reinforced the message: humans would not be intimidated, and they were clever enough to challenge even the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Captain Alara encouraged officers to push the boundaries of creativity. They devised maneuvers that exploited weaknesses in the Empire's formations. Small groups of human ships would appear in multiple locations, forcing the Empire to divide its attention. They used asteroid belts, space debris, and natural formations to hide their movements and strike unexpectedly. Each time the Empire fired or moved to attack, the humans responded in ways that were both efficient and audacious. It was not reckless. It was carefully calculated to protect their ships, while demonstrating resilience and intelligence. The laughter of humans became a symbol of defiance. Whenever the Empire attempted to project fear, they were met with humor and audacity. This response created doubt within the Imperial ranks. Commanders had relied on fear as their greatest tool, and now they realized that humans did not understand fear in the same way other civilizations did. The psychological advantage, which had always been theirs, was slipping. Every mockery, every clever maneuver, and every prediction of Imperial movements chipped away at their confidence. Even the Empire's experienced war captains began to second-guess their strategies. Their massive fleet, which had dominated countless worlds, struggled to understand the humans' approach. What they assumed would be a straightforward conquest became a complicated challenge. Human pilots seemed to anticipate moves before they happened, dodging attacks and creating illusions of larger forces. These maneuvers made the humans appear almost supernaturally aware. Further unnerving the Empire, the humans also employed small, daring strikes against the fleet, designed more to frustrate and confuse than to inflict significant damage. Using their smaller, faster ships, they grazed the Empire's larger vessels with precision, disappearing before a counterattack could occur. The strikes were symbolic as much as tactical. They showed that humans were brave, resourceful, and not bound by conventional rules of warfare. The Empire's expectation that physical might alone would dominate the humans was being challenged at every turn. Despite the apparent danger, morale on the human side remained high. The crew thrived on the challenge, and civilians felt part of a collective effort. Confidence and humor were tools, as vital as engines or weapons. Each successful prediction, each clever evasion, reinforced the belief that the humans could stand up to a fleet that should have been overwhelming. This unity and courage created a powerful psychological shield, one that the Empire could not penetrate. By the time the humans had completed their initial maneuvers, it was clear that the psychological warfare had shifted. The Empire, once confident, was now cautious and hesitant. Every move was measured, every order questioned, and every strategy second-guessed. Humans had taken the Empire's own weapon fear and turned it against them. The laughter, the cleverness, and the audacity of the human fleet had demonstrated that intimidation alone could not guarantee victory. Captain Alara knew that this was just the beginning. By using psychological tactics, the humans had gained a vital advantage before any real battle had begun. They had unsettled the Empire, forced it to question itself, and demonstrated that humans were unpredictable, creative, and courageous. The small, seemingly fragile human fleet had already proven that they could stand against the mightiest power in the galaxy, not through overwhelming force, but through intelligence, audacity, and the refusal to be afraid. The stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the Empire had experienced. Humans had laughed at their threats, mocked their authority, and demonstrated their cleverness and unity. The Empire had learned, perhaps for the first time, that fear was not universal. While their massive ships filled the void of space, the humans' laughter and cleverness echoed even louder, signaling that intimidation alone would not work. The psychological battle had already been won, and the humans stood ready for whatever would come next. The humans had spent days preparing, observing the Imperial fleet, and testing their strategies. But now it was time for action. Captain Ilara Vance knew that the Empire's commanders were already confused and cautious, and this was the perfect moment to strike. The human fleet, smaller and faster, had one advantage that no amount of size or firepower could overcome: unpredictability. Every ship was ready to execute maneuvers that the Empire could not have anticipated, and every crew member understood the risks and rewards. The first step of the counterattack was misdirection. The humans divided their fleet into small, seemingly scattered groups. On sensors, these groups appeared to be isolated or vulnerable, tempting the Empire to attack. When Imperial ships moved to strike, the humans executed sudden, synchronized maneuvers. Ships that seemed separate joined together, forming unexpected formations that cut through the Empire's lines. It was a calculated chaos, designed to disrupt and confuse the larger, slower ships. Asteroid fields and space debris became critical allies. The humans had mapped the surrounding region in detail, noting every rock, cloud of dust, and gravitational anomaly. They used these natural features to hide their movements. Small human ships would vanish behind asteroids, only to reappear in positions where they could attack or distract the Empire's fleet. The Imperial commanders, relying on traditional tactics, were unprepared for enemies who could appear and disappear at will, striking where least expected. The humans' weapons were precise rather than massive. Instead of trying to destroy the Empire's ships outright, they targeted key points, communication arrays, sensor equipment, and smaller weapons systems. This limited the Empire's ability to coordinate, making their already confused fleet even more disorganized. Each strike was quick and surgical, demonstrating not only skill but intelligence. Every pilot knew that survival depended on strategy, not brute force. The Empire responded with overwhelming firepower, attempting to crush the human ships through sheer volume of attacks. Massive energy beams and missile barrages tore through space where human vessels had been moments before. Yet the humans had anticipated these responses. Their small, agile ships dodged the attacks, weaving through asteroid belts and maneuvering in ways impossible for the Empire's large ships. The humans' speed and clever use of terrain allowed them to survive strikes that would have destroyed any conventional fleet. Communication was key during the counterattack. Captain Ilara coordinated every movement, issuing orders that allowed ships to act together despite being separated across vast distances. Officers relayed real-time information about enemy movements, creating a constantly updating picture that allowed the humans to strike with perfect timing. The Empire, used to commanding through fear and brute force, struggled to respond to this dynamic and highly coordinated approach. In addition to tactical strikes, humans used deception on a massive scale. Holographic decoys and fake fleets appeared on the Empire's sensors, drawing attention away from actual ships. Some of these decoys were deliberately designed to be vulnerable, luring Imperial ships into traps where small human teams could attack from unexpected angles. Every trick, every illusion amplified the Empire's confusion and increased the effectiveness of the human counterattack. The humans also leveraged the element of surprise. At one point, a group of small ships appeared seemingly out of nowhere, darting through the midst of the Empire's fleet. They hit lightly but accurately, targeting vulnerable points before disappearing again. The Empire's commanders could not believe the precision of these attacks. Their massive fleet, designed to dominate any battle, was unable to predict or respond effectively. Each successful strike, however minor in damage, had a psychological effect. The humans were fearless, clever, and impossible to fully control. The morale of the human crews was at its peak. They were not simply surviving. They were dictating the flow of battle despite being outnumbered and outgunned. Each successful maneuver brought laughter and cheers across the fleet. This energy carried through to the communications sent to the Empire. Taunts, witty comments, and mocking signals continued to flow, keeping the psychological edge firmly in the humans' favor. The Empire's intimidation tactics had been entirely reversed. Now they were the ones uneasy and uncertain. Even the smallest human vessels played a significant role. One scout ship might slip through gaps in the Empire's formation to disable a critical weapon system, while another group of ships created a diversion elsewhere. Every move was part of a larger strategy, a coordinated dance designed to maximize confusion and minimize risk. The humans understood that in this battle, cleverness and unity could achieve what raw power alone could not. The Empire attempted to regroup and concentrate its attacks, but the humans anticipated these moves. As soon as an Imperial ship changed course, humans adjusted their own positions, maintaining the illusion of vulnerability while actually preparing the next strike. The Empire was forced to divide attention and resources constantly, unable to focus on one part of the battlefield without leaving another exposed. The humans' adaptability became a force multiplier, making their smaller numbers feel far larger than reality. Over time, the effectiveness of the counterattack became clear. Imperial ships were damaged, not destroyed outright, but their ability to coordinate and intimidate was severely weakened. Confusion and hesitation spread through the Empire's ranks. What had been a fleet expecting obedience was now a fleet questioning every command. The humans' daring maneuvers, precise strikes, and clever use of terrain had turned the tables entirely. The psychological advantage had shifted completely. Captain Alara watched the unfolding battle with a mixture of focus and pride. Every officer and crew member knew that their ingenuity and courage were the true weapons. The Empire had relied on fear and overwhelming power, but the humans had neutralized both. Their strategy was working, and the initial audacity of laughing at the enemy had evolved into an effective campaign that protected the colony while weakening the Empire's resolve. The humans' counterattack demonstrated a new kind of warfare, one where intelligence, flexibility, and creativity mattered more than size. Every movement was calculated to maximize advantage, confuse the enemy, and minimize risk. By combining deception, precise strikes, and unpredictable maneuvers, they had shown that even the mightiest fleet could be challenged successfully. As the battle continued, the Empire's fleet began to retreat in small segments, each ship hesitant, unsure of what the humans might do next. Captain Elaro's plan had succeeded beyond expectation. The humans had not only survived the initial confrontation but had turned it into a decisive display of strategy and courage. The Empire, for all its size and power, had learned that the audacity and ingenuity of humans were forces to be reckoned with. The counterattack was more than a battle. It was a statement. It showed that humans could take a seemingly hopeless situation and turn it into an opportunity to outsmart an overwhelmingly powerful opponent. Every move, every clever strike, and every successful deception reinforced the same lesson. Size and power alone do not guarantee victory. Courage, intelligence, and unpredictability can level the playing field, even against the most powerful enemy in the galaxy. The human fleet, though small and lightly armed, had proven itself capable of striking fear into the Empire, not through brute force but through skill, planning, and creativity. Every ship had a role, every crew member a purpose, and every maneuver contributed to the larger strategy. By the end of the engagement, it was clear that the humans had achieved something remarkable. They had challenged the impossible and won through wit, courage, and ingenuity. The Empire's fleet had been challenged in ways it had never experienced before. The humans had not only survived the initial confrontation but had turned the battle into a demonstration of ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable spirit. Captain Alara Vance knew that the final phase of this encounter required both strategy and morale. The human fleet was smaller, their ships less powerful, but their confidence and cleverness had become their greatest weapons. Now it was time to solidify their advantage and ensure that the Empire could not easily recover. The human ships moved in carefully coordinated formations, smaller groups acting independently but with perfect synchronization. Each pilot understood their role, whether it was a direct strike, diversion, or support. That humans continued to use asteroids, gas clouds, and other natural features of space to conceal their movements. They exploited the Empire's reliance on predictable strategies, striking where the enemy least expected. These attacks were precise and effective, targeting weak points in the massive warships. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the humans maintained complete control of their communications and coordination. Captain Elira's calm and confident leadership inspired every officer and crew member. Messages of encouragement, tactical instructions, and even humorous commentary flowed seamlessly across the fleet. Morale was not just high, it was unshakable. Every crew member knew that their clever strategies and daring maneuvers had already unsettled the Empire, and that confidence carried them through the most dangerous moments of the engagement. The Empire tried to regroup, attempting to restore order and prepare a decisive counterattack. Their commanders issued strict orders and concentrated fire on clusters of human ships, expecting to overwhelm them with sheer power. But the humans anticipated this. Small vessels darted in and out of sensor range, creating illusions of larger numbers while actually avoiding most attacks entirely. The Empire fired relentlessly, yet their shots often missed or struck empty space, wasting ammunition and energy while causing minimal damage to the nimble human ships. Humans used every tool at their disposal. Holographic decoys continued to confuse the enemy, making it appear as though the fleet was larger and more widespread than it actually was. Diversionary tactics drew Imperial attention away from the real points of attack, allowing other groups of human ships to disable critical systems on the larger warships. The humans' precision, creativity, and coordination made them far more dangerous than the Empire had anticipated, turning what could have been a one-sided massacre into a series of unexpected victories. Even the civilians on the colony contributed to the final phase. Engineers, scientists, and technicians worked tirelessly to maintain communication networks, repair minor ship damage, and generate decoy signals. Their participation created a unified front that made the colony seem larger and more formidable. That humans were not just surviving, they were demonstrating their ability to operate as a cohesive and resourceful society. Every person's effort mattered, reinforcing the strength of unity and ingenuity in the face of overwhelming power. As the battle progressed, the Empire's confidence continued to erode. Their massive fleet, designed to dominate through intimidation and firepower, was now disoriented and hesitant. Human ships struck with precision, evaded attacks with agility, and maintained constant pressure. Each successful maneuver, no matter how small, weakened the Empire's ability to coordinate and inspired further confidence in the humans. The psychological advantage that had shifted in Part 3 and Part 4 now became decisive. Captain Elara knew that the next step was to push the Empire toward retreat without risking unnecessary loss of life. She ordered a series of carefully planned feints and distractions. Some human ships moved into vulnerable positions, drawing fire while other groups struck critical components of the Imperial vessels. It was a delicate balance. The humans had to appear daring without giving the Empire an opportunity to destroy them. Every move was calculated to maximize impact and minimize risk, relying on timing, precision, and surprise. The Empire, facing losses and unable to predict the humans' next moves, began to retreat. Their fleet, once confident and imposing, was now scattered and uncertain. Some ships tried to regroup, only to encounter another wave of human precision strikes. Systems were damaged, formations disrupted, and morale plummeted. The humans' combination of intelligence, creativity, and audacity had forced the largest fleet in the galaxy to withdraw in confusion and caution. The humans' victory was not just physical but symbolic. They had demonstrated that ingenuity, courage, and unity could overcome raw power. Captain Elara addressed her crew and the colony, emphasizing that their success was the result of planning, creativity, and the refusal to be intimidated. The laughter that had first greeted the Empire's threats had become a symbol of human resilience. They had faced an opponent that seemed unbeatable and had emerged not only intact but triumphant. The colony celebrated cautiously at first, aware that the Empire was powerful and could regroup elsewhere. Yet pride and confidence were evident everywhere. Humans had proven themselves capable of standing against overwhelming odds. Ships returned from daring maneuvers, pilots exchanged stories of narrow escapes, and engineers shared tales of clever solutions that had made a difference in the fight. The sense of achievement was tangible, and the humans understood that their collective effort had rewritten what was possible in space warfare. Even the Empire could not deny the human success. Reports from commanders acknowledged the skill, creativity, and audacity of the human fleet. They had been forced to retreat from a colony that, on paper, should have been easy to intimidate and destroy. Humans had used humor, strategy, and cunning to counter threats far beyond their size and strength. In doing so, they had reshaped the perception of human capability across the galaxy. Captain Ilara and her officers took time to review the battle, analyzing every successful maneuver and every tactic that had worked against the Empire. They learned from each action, understanding that their greatest strength was not just technology or numbers but adaptability, intelligence, and the willingness to take risks thoughtfully. The lessons from this confrontation would guide them in future challenges, strengthening the humans' ability to face any opponent. The final phase of the encounter emphasized the importance of teamwork and unity. Every ship, every crew member, and even every civilian contribution mattered. The humans' coordinated efforts turned a small fleet into a force that could challenge and defeat one of the most powerful militaries in the galaxy. Their success was a combination of clever tactics, bold maneuvers, and unshakable morale. It was not luck, but deliberate, calculated, and fearless action. By the end of the battle, the humans had achieved a complete victory. The Empire's fleet retreated, damaged and confused, while the human colony remained unharmed and intact. The humans had not only defended their home but had also proven that size and intimidation alone could not conquer courage and ingenuity. Their laughter, clever strategies, and daring maneuvers had become legendary, a story of resilience that would be told for generations. The humans' actions transformed their reputation in the galaxy. They had faced a force that had crushed countless others and had emerged victorious, not by overwhelming power, but by thinking differently, acting boldly, and maintaining unity under pressure. Captain Ilara and her crew became heroes, their leadership and ingenuity celebrated throughout the colony and beyond. The Empire had learned a lesson it would not forget. Humans were not easily intimidated, and their cleverness could turn the tide of battle in ways no one could predict. The victory was complete. The human fleet had shown that courage, intelligence, and the refusal to be cowed by fear were as powerful as any weapon. The Empire had underestimated humans, and the outcome had proven that ingenuity and daring could triumph over even the most formidable enemy. The battle ended with the humans standing victorious, a symbol of resilience, creativity, and unshakable spirit. Their laughter, once a simple defiance, had become a lasting testament to what could be achieved when intelligence, courage, and unity combined against impossible odds.